Hi guys, I am very excited to be here. Hopefully Warwick loves some of my other sayings I'm about to share just as much as that one. But the title of my talk is Why Adventure is Essential. Why we should all get a little bit cold, a little bit hot, a little bit tired, a little bit sore, a little bit excited, and also a little bit scared in our lives. We are all adventurers, or we can all be adventurers at one level or another. Now, I am very aware that if you saw me walking down the road, or if you saw me in my horse riding get up at a horse show, I probably don't look that adventurous. So maybe I'll start a little bit with what I do. So these days, I lead remote area expeditions in Mongolia. I thought up and led the coldest camel expedition in the world. I have just gotten back from leading the longest multi-animal expedition in the world, which is riding from one end of Mongolia to the other, starting on camels, and then horses, and then over the mountains on yaks, and then some more horse riding, and finishing up near Siberia on reindeer. Over the last 10 years, I have clocked up 7,000 kilometres that I can remember of miles in the saddle in Mongolia. Back home in New Zealand, I train and manage lots of wild horses. The wild horses are up into the hundreds. I organise the biggest adventure race with the smallest horses in the world back in New Zealand. I am an author. And after many years of putting TV episodes together for Mongolian TV, next year I have 2 of my own documentary films coming out, which I'm very excited about. Now, I almost had the normal equestrian path. Got very close to it, very, very close. I was that horse-mad kid. Like, all I wanted to do was be on my ponies. I was fascinated by horse training and what I could get them to do, sometimes getting them to do very naughty things and getting up to lots of mischief. But that was my thing. I was very lucky to have great horsemanship mentors very early on. Every weekend you could find me at horse shows. I talk about this a lot in my book because it was really important. It's probably where I am today, but I'm going to brush through it a little bit here. Enough that I wanted horse training to be my life, so I did the good things. I went to Europe, I sat my German riding exams, I went back and I worked for New Zealand's top trainers. My dressage sucked, so I went and worked for a dressage trainer. And I was going to be an eventer, so I did that. And I went out eventing and I won the New Zealand Young Riding Series. I had a team of eventing horses. I competed at the top level of the sport for 6 years. I had the sponsors, I had all these things that I thought I needed to kind of feel like I was making it or thought what was where I wanted to be. But some piece of the puzzle it was not fitting in. You know, I'd be at horse shows and just there was something missing. I was trying to jam that piece of the puzzle into the jigsaw and it just didn't quite work. So in my mid-20s, while I was still competing, I started looking for something more. I was still working extensively with the wild horses, which I love to this day. But I saw this Facebook post, as you do, about a friend who was going to Egypt in the middle of the Arab Spring when all the civil unrest, the civil uprising was happening. And she was doing a welfare trip. And I thought, man, this looks good. This looks like really exciting. I can go and put my skills to good use. And so I signed up, and 2 weeks later, I found myself on the streets of Egypt, right next to the pyramids, wrestling camels and mules and donkeys and horses. And I loved it. I had all these horsemanship skills, and instead of using them to produce an eventing horse, now I was wrestling a donkey to get a tube of wormer down its throat as it tried to stomp me into the ground. Or I was holding the horse and trying to keep it calm so the vet could sew up a wound. Or I was using it for camels to try and treat a leg wound. And it felt really good, and it felt suddenly like some piece of that puzzle was starting to fall into place. And it kind of made me think what it was about horses that really drew me in. Because what I learned there is I loved working with the camels just as much as I loved working with horses. Like, I liked the mules. Like, it was a chance to explore. It was a chance to explore behaviour more and more, and I loved that. All this time, I'm still doing the normal equestrian thing and trying to be really good, like a trainer, a clinician, all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to still fit myself right into that box. But it's getting harder and harder. And then another night, in the middle of winter, when it's really muddy and miserable to ride horses, I'm sitting on the computer again, and this YouTube video pops up, and it's all these riders getting bucked off, dragged, stomped into the ground. They're crying, they're windburnt, they're sunburnt, looking pretty miserable, trying to get on these Mongolian horses for the Mongol Derby. And I saw this video, and I was like, that looks amazing. It was instant, like absolutely instant. I'm like, that is what I need to do. There's no doubt in my mind, this is for me. So again, I cover all this in my book, but I'm going to gloss over it a bit here. It took me 2 years to save the deposit, but I went to Mongolia. It's a 1,000-kilometre horse race. It's called the toughest horse race in the world for very, very good reason. You're allowed 5 kgs to get you 1,000 kilometres, no support crew, all that. 10-day limit, blah, blah, blah. I did it in 6.5 days. I came third. I lost about 6 kgs during those days, yeah. And what I found is it pushed me so outside of what I thought I could physically. I was an inventor. I thought I could do stuff on a horse. I thought I was tough. This race took me so far beyond what I thought I could do. So far. Someone said the Mongol Derby would break you, and I kind of scoffed at them before I went. The Mongol Derby will strip you back to the bare basics and rebuild you. It was incredibly tough. But what I got from it was this sense of achievement and belief in myself that no one else could take away. At horse shows, it never, ever felt good enough. No matter what I won, no matter what I did, it was never good enough. I never got that buzz, and it felt like someone could strip that sense of achievement away from me at any time. 10 years on, I talk about the Mongol Derby, and I still feel a glow of pride in myself for what I went through and what I achieved. And I did it all by myself. No one was there to see it. No one else can acknowledge it. It was just for me. And it was a really, really important message that I learned. I was very lucky that I got to go back to the Mongol Derby. I spent the next 5 years working on it. And that let me see an incredibly tough race from both sides. I knew what it was like as a rider, and then I got to go back and be crew. And I saw people at their lowest, at their highest. I saw them go through their struggles. I saw where people quit and where they got the courage to keep going. And it taught me even more valuable messages. One is being tough, being strong, being resilient has no look to it. You can be the physically strongest looking person, you can be young, you can be confident, and fail at the slightest hurdle. You can look frail, be older, be quiet, and succeed. There was no look to who was going to finish and who wasn't. What I did realise is we are all capable of so much more than we think. All of us. But it comes down to your mental strength. We can't control the external factors. We can't control if we've been given a psychotic horse that's going to bolt for 25 kilometres, or the fact that it's hailing and we're hypothermic, or that the other competitors are mean. We can't control any of that, but we can control our mindset, and it is the most powerful tool we have in all circumstances. So, what is adventure? Adventure takes you out of your comfort zone. It's something with an unknown outcome. A roller coaster takes you outside of your comfort zone, but it's a known outcome. You go through some bumps and you get to the end and get off. Known outcome. It has a certain level of risk we have to navigate. And it's different for everybody. I said yesterday, I love a good sufferfest out in the desert and riding for thousands of kilometres. That doesn't mean that your adventure of going for a day hike or doing your first fun run or going mountain biking isn't an adventure. It is still an adventure. It doesn't have to be in far off countries. It can be close to home. That is absolutely fine. It's not quite a holiday either. Like, you can go to the pool and lie by the pool and think all the thoughts and, do some self-exploration, but that is still not an adventure. You can go to the pool and then go off and go shark diving and do something that is outside your comfort zone, and that probably is an adventure. But for me, everyone always asks, how did I get to be riding a camel in -45? For me, it's about curiosity. A sense of adventure has to come with a sense of curiosity, and that is key. There are cool things I hear about and think I would like to do, like climb Mount Everest, sounds like a great idea, but I'm not really that curious about it. It's just one of those things we think we should be like, oh yeah, adventurous, climb a mountain. That's not me. I like doing things with animals. So find your own adventure. I think this is so important to me. I have amazing friends. One of my friends cycled from Beijing to London. Another one was the first woman to cross Alaska alone. Another one spent 30 days in the Arctic alone. Those are all great things, but they're not my thing. You all have to find what makes you curious. What you go to lie down at night, put your head on the pillow, and man, you cannot stop thinking about it, and it's keeping you awake because you're so excited just thinking about it. You might be scared as well, but you're excited. If you don't have that yet, it doesn't matter. You're not lost. You just need to keep exploring until you find that thing. Don't be afraid to build up to your dream. I see so many people fail and have a terrible experience because they're like, well, here I am, and here's the dream, and I'll just jump to here. That doesn't work. I talked a little bit yesterday about you've got to go, how am I going to get there? And you've got to build those steps. And that is so important. And maybe you want to come and do the Mongol Derby or want to come on an expedition with me, but it feels too far away because you haven't cantered a horse yet. Well, it doesn't mean your dream's impossible. It just means you've got to find someone, a horse, whatever, you've got to put in the steps to give you those skills to get there. Same with hiking, whatever your dream is, don't be afraid to put the work in. It is always going to be worth it. It doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. Most of my adventures, when I dream them up, don't mean anything to anybody else. I thought it'd be a great idea to snowboard behind a camel for the first time in the world. And everyone was like, why? And I'm like, wow, it sounds cool. It means something to me. I'm going to do it. It doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. I think the biggest mistake is we choose an adventure, we choose a goal that we think might justify us in other people's eyes. That's not going to bring you a sense of satisfaction. It's not going to help you grow as a person. You have to do something that is important to you. Don't give up. Don't ever, ever give up. It took me 10 years to pull off the expedition of my dreams, and that was the one we've just done, the 1,200-kilometre one. And I can tell you right now, every bit of it was worth it. The setbacks, the struggles, the dream, the working out the logistics, getting the skills to actually be able to do it, building the relationships, every single part of that was worth it. So do not give up. It might have seemed a really obvious step to go on to create my own adventures, my own expeditions, run an expedition company, but it actually wasn't. I would not have thought that I would be here today talking about this 10 years ago, but here we are. What I did feel, I'd done all these expeditions, I'd done the Mongol Derby, I'd been up with the reindeer people, I'd slept in snow at -40, I have walked across the Simpson Desert with camels, I'd done all these things, and what it did leave me with was a responsibility to make sure other people get those experiences. I saw how much I grew, I saw how different expeditions changed other people's lives, and it did leave me. I felt so grateful. It left me with this feeling that, man, the only way I can pay this back is to make sure other people have this opportunity as well. I'm also a big believer that we need to get out in nature. I'm a big believer that we have to connect with animals, we have to do journeys with animals to really have a love for them, for our understanding, and make sure we keep room for them in our world. So these were some driving factors for me. I did decide to kick off my own expedition company with a bang by doing the coldest camel expedition in the world, and that was in 2018, and it was the coldest conditions we've ever had. It was -47 the first night. And I convinced 9 of my friends to come with me. They thank me now. But But no, it was incredible. And I got to see them go through highs and lows as well. And it's really humbling. It's not like, ha, 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 you're suffering. It's like, man, like, that's awesome. Like to watch you fight your own personal demons and come out the other side, or realize that you are so much stronger than you think you are. I loved it. And after years of solo expedition, it was awesome to be able to share it. It's awesome to be here and know that Warwick, Kelly, there's been people on my expeditions and we can catch up and talk about it. And it's like living the highlights of it all again. So creating my own expedition company also gave me that. I can relive them with other people as well as giving people amazing experiences. I do many others these days. We follow the annual migration of the reindeer people in Mongolia, which is this tribe of 200 people who live very isolated at the top of the mountains. We have just done this 1,200 kilometre expedition that was the dream. For me, they all mean something deeply to me, and that's the only reason it works. I also have a deep connection to Mongolia. I have so many friends within the nomadic community there that I love deeply, and it was also my way of giving back to them and helping support them. So it meant a lot to me. Now, through all of this, one of the first things I say when I give an expedition briefing is feel free to cope. And I don't mean this in a mean way. I don't mean it as in like suppress everything you're feeling, shut it down, don't feel it. I've stolen that quote off someone I hugely respect, who has been on the front lines of war, who has done the most incredible expeditions, is one of the strongest people both physically and emotionally. And I watched him use that quote and how it empowered people. And it comes from kind of seeing an action on the Mongol Derby where people would be at their worst and you'd see someone suffer and everyone would run over to them and be like, oh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. You don't have to do it, you don't have to do it, you don't have to do it. And you'd watch people crumble because it didn't give them the space to find their mental strength, to find their resilience, to realize how strong they truly were. And I'm a big believer in this. We need the space, we need the room to realize we can cope. We can get through it. We can feel the feels and keep going despite the fear or being muscle tired or whatever it is that is hurting you at that time. We can do it. But you need that room to have that feeling like, yes, I can cope with it. And you will. You'll be able to cope with it. I tell it to people all the time. Sometimes they don't like hearing it. They always thank me later, though. This was in -40 with some reindeer. We were well away from any civilization, and I didn't know it, but COVID was kicking off at the time. But it was one of those moments that even for me, I had to suck it up. We had a long way to go. We were in deep snow outside of my wheelhouse, and I had to cope. We always can improve our coping skills. So I was up in the mountains, COVID hit, came back to a very different world, couldn't run expeditions. It was a real bummer. But I came back to New Zealand, I had this experience with animal welfare, I had this experience with expedition leading. I'd always wanted to do something in New Zealand. And as a horse trainer who works with wild horses, people seem to think I want miniature horses, and so they'd offer them to me at all times throughout my career. And I was like, what am I going to do with these things? Like, they have no use. Like, I'm not going to go and do halter shows with them. They've got many other things to do. But I kept thinking, man, there must be something. Like, I have gained so much for being out there outside of my comfort zone with animals. Surely we can package this into something and give these animals a second chance, a better life. I don't know how many of you know about miniature horses, but they often end up obese, laminitic, metabolic. They are so often rescue cases, and they have all forms of terrible behaviour, and usually they're stallions as well for some reason. All the things that are bad. So I was like, well, I'm in New Zealand, let's create an expedition race. And so we did. So we set up a 100-kilometre expedition race, 4 days, 25 kilometres a day, with miniature ponies. And we got all these rescues that came to my place. I got them all fit, we got them all ready, and we had this race. And the people who showed up were amazing. We had Ironmen, Iron women, triathletes, ultramarathon runners. We had the man who had set the record for running the length of New Zealand. He does crazy, like 200 kilometres a day. All adults. And then we had people who had never even done a 5-kilometre run yet. They had no intention of running, they would come and walk. We had mothers who had been busy raising kids, they'd never had time for themselves, and they'd found themselves left with these fat, unruly ponies in the paddock that they were having to care for every day and nothing to do with. And so they all showed up on the start line, and we had this amazing experience. We had 4 days, and people had the same highs and lows. Like, people got muscle sore, they got blisters. These extreme athletes didn't know how a horse operated, so they had their own challenges. And we got to the last day, and man, were there tears. Like probably one of the most emotional things I've ever been involved with at the finish line of the miniature pony race of all things. Like, there was these people who this was their first adventure, and their families were there, they were crying. The ultra athletes were like, oh my God, I love my pony, I don't want to say goodbye to it. And it was incredibly empowering. But what it really hammered home to me is it does not matter the size of the adventure. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 kilometres or 100. It doesn't matter if the horses are this big or this big. It doesn't matter the size of your dream as long as you go out and do it. This is probably one of the biggest takeaways from the miniature ponies. Who knew miniatures could teach us anything? So why is adventure essential? Because I believe it is. I very strongly believe it is. It gives that confidence that is all your own, that no one can take away. It gives us self-belief. Doesn't mean we'll never be scared. It just gives us a belief that we can overcome it. It starts a ripple effect. You might start off with something little, but it might help you find your tribe and lead on to bigger things. You never know where those first little steps will take you. It gives you perspective. Now, I used to worry about going to horse shows and what people would think of my ride, or did I stuff up in the ring. I can tell you, after vomiting off a horse in Mongolia to the point of hallucinating and thinking vultures were going to eat me, I don't really mind what people think of me anymore. I am happy. Like, those small problems just seem small now. They are easy to overcome because I have this sense of perspective. Also, it's really easy to feel your place in the world when you're around mountains and deserts. It's great. Again, it gives you that tribe. Here today, we've all got a bit of a tribe happening, that connection to other people, to something bigger than you. And I always find adventure leads you to like-minded people and finding your own tribe. It gives you that connection to the outside world. Kathy's talk today, we are nature. There are so few opportunities in today's world to reconnect with that nature, to feel at one with it, to experience it in all forms, whether that's hail or sunshine. But most of all, it makes your life richer. It makes it full of colour, and it makes it full of wonderful memories. And that's all.